Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, and welcome back to Soul Archaeology. It's wild how physically we are feeling and experiencing this wildfire energy on the physical plane that's happening in the sky. In the forecast workshop, the 2026 forecast workshop, I talked about this outer planet configuration feeling like wildfire, that things would be moving so rapidly that it would feel like we pressed the fast forward button and quite literally feel like wildfire, with the air and the fire that's creating this whole karmic storm, rebuilding the architecture of our human consciousness, elevating it, upgrading it, even though it probably doesn't feel that way. There's so much more density that's being revealed. And I think we just have access to more of it. We can see more of it. And there's more light entering the planet. But when we move through portals like we are right now, where, we're entering eclipse season, we are entering retrograde season, everything is getting heightened. We have this really intense El Nino environment happening in our weather patterns. And there are wildfires across the world. It's an incredibly hot summer. The heat is turned up. Everyone I'm talking to, regardless of where they are experiencing much hotter temperatures this summer. El Nino is incredibly intense. We have wildfires, of course. And this week, Mars is entering Cancer, which is water. And Mars is a fiery planet. It's entering water. The last time Mars was in Cancer in this place, we had the wildfires in LA. So September 2024, Mars entered Cancer, began in December of that year a retrograde journey back into Cancer, and we were in this Cancer swirl. Mars was out of bounds like it will be this week. We also have eclipse season. All the outer planets are in air and fire, and so there's just an intensity here. It can feel like a firestorm, quite frankly. And as we, on an individual level, navigate this intensity, there's so much grounding that's needed. You're probably tired of hearing me say this, but chop wood, carry water. It's going back to the simple practices each and every day. What are you choosing? How are you grounding? How are you caring for your body? What are you consuming? What are you taking in, as far as data and information, as far as food, as far as water, substances, programs? This time is already naturally expansive. That Barbault Basket really activated this new architecture that's being built behind the scenes. And our job is to work with it, to notice, to observe where we are holding old patterns, old identities, old attachments to the way things were or have been. And I want to talk more about that in this episode because we have this 2017 timeline that's coming up. It's really fascinating to see where we are being asked to shed, to look at what parts of our identity, our ego, our sense of self that we've constructed over the last 9 years is ready for an upgrade. And this week is big. There's a lot of Leo energy. We have a stellium in Leo. We have a total solar eclipse in Leo. We have Mercury entering Leo. We have both the sun and the moon that will be there. We have the south node there. Like I said, a stellium. So there's a lot here. There's also an opposition to Pluto and Aquarius that's being formed throughout this whole process. So this week is quite large. It can be quite grandiose, quite expansive, expanded, over the top even. It's a really good week to take your sacred pauses, noticing where you're responding from, and being really cautious of how you're communicating. So on August 9th, Mercury enters Leo. That's a Sunday. And then on August 11th, Mars enters Cancer, which is the day before this total solar eclipse in Leo. Mercury pretty quickly begins to form a conjunction with Jupiter and then an opposition to Pluto. So this week is active. There's a lot happening. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of large fire energy. But the big piece really is this total solar eclipse in Leo. Mercury entering Leo is going to activate and expand the throat, our communication, how we express, how we share, where we share from. And it's officially out of its shadow. So last week, Mercury exited its shadow. Now with it being in Leo, it's really turning the page on this Mercury retrograde. So the heart work, the deep remothering, reworking of some of these core wounds connected to the heart, connected to caretaking, connected to emotional attunement, the inner child, the inner mother. This should be integrating. And you'll likely feel sort of a fresh energy, a new beginning emerging as Mercury shifts into Leo. It's quite literally turning the page on where our mental energy is going. We might feel more of a desire to express, to share something, to be out in the world, to be opinionated, to be passionate, to be clear, to be heard. Pretty quickly, Mercury begins to oppose Pluto in Aquarius. So there's still going to be some underworld material here. We're not getting off the hook too easily. This is going to hit that very similar point where Jupiter just opposed Pluto as well in the middle of July. So we're going to be revisiting some of these power dynamics within our relationship to self, within our wounding around being seen, being heard, where we hold old data and information within those spaces, what we're serving, what our true intention is around what we're sharing, what we're expressing, and whether it's coming from the higher heart or the wound. Maybe conversations that need to be had will emerge. Maybe you're able to break through something, through a dynamic or a pattern in yourself or within your relationship with someone where you're actually heard, where you can see a new perspective, where you might feel stuck. And then this moves us into Mars entering Cancer on the 11th. And like I said, we had a pretty significant Mars in Cancer transit. We might all have a little trauma from that transit at the end of 2024 into April of 2025. And this was a long transit because we had a Mercury or a Mars retrograde in Cancer. It took that long for it to move out of its shadow and into Leo. So we might be revisiting points from December 2024 when Mars stationed retrograde at 5 degrees of Leo, close to where it will be this week, went all the way back into Cancer, took all the way until April of 2025 to re-enter Leo. And there might be material that surfaces that is similar or resonant with that December 2024, April 2025 timeline for you. That was also a really interesting time. We had a lot of Piscean energy, of course. Like I said, in LA here, we had the fires. So we're kind of going back over that territory from really November to April 2025, November 2024 to April 2025. Mars will take a few weeks to get to that point specifically, but this whole Mars and Cancer transit, I think, is going to be a bit of a retrieval, a bit of a soul retrieval. Anytime Mars is in Cancer, if you have this natally, I have a few friends who have this transit, it can feel interesting. It brings our drive, our will, our action, our choices inward into the emotional body. Themes around home, belonging, family, protection, water will be heightened. I know a lot of my LA people, we navigated a lot around home during that period of time. What was home, how safe home felt, those pieces might come back up in some way, shape, or form. Not to bring any fear. I don't think it's something to fear, but Mars is out of bounds. It can be a little unruly in this period of time, and paired with an eclipse season as well. What do we need to surrender? What attachments, what layers of our ego are no longer serving in the same way as they were before? The theme of protection will be really strong, I think, with this transit. And what are we protecting? Are we protecting what's real and true within us? Are we protecting what's sacred? Or are we protecting layers of the ego? Are we holding heart walls that keep us from entering this next layer and level of consciousness that we're being called into? And this brings us into, on August 12th, the total solar eclipse in Leo. And this is on August 12th at 10:46 a.m. Pacific at 20 degrees of Leo. And the lunar nodes are at 29 degrees. So the lunar nodes are at the anaretic degrees. The south node is at 29 degrees anaretic degree of Leo. The north node is at 29 degrees of Aquarius. So even though the eclipse isn't happening at the 29 degree point, any new moon or full moon that occurs within a 12-degree orb of a lunar node is going to be an eclipse. And this one in particular is 9 degrees from the lunar node point. So this is significant. The last time we had a total solar eclipse in Leo was when it was along this axis in 2018. Specifically 2017, August 21st, 2017, we had a total solar eclipse in Leo. Now, this eclipse was connected to the north node, so it was a much different energy, and something was birthed at that time. There was pressure around carving out your new identity, birthing a new identity. That total solar eclipse, I remember exactly where I was. I was still living in the Midwest, and I just felt it in my bones. And I had one of the most intense spiritual awakenings of my life a few weeks after that truly set me on this trajectory that I'm on now. So I've heard from so many people on Instagram, so many different clients. I did actually an eclipse portal workshop. So I forgot to mention that, but that is for sale. You can watch the replay. It is incredibly potent. I talk all about this eclipse season, how to work with it, what to expect over the next month to 6 months as we move through this next portal of time. These eclipses are opening an entirely new window. I talk about the 2017 point, and then we navigated a really, really potent quantum healing journey. I don't recommend manifesting during eclipse season, but what I do recommend is working with the energy that's already present. The energy is already unfolding. Eclipses are wild karmic storms. They come in and they work with where the lunar nodes are calling us already. So what's happening is already in motion. Our work is to surrender, to ride the waves, to observe, to notice what's here. I had someone on Substack ask me, what if I need to manifest a new house during an eclipse season? And what's so fascinating to me, one, is I've called in a new house during an eclipse season in 2023. And just because it's an eclipse season doesn't mean you can't be clear, that you can't clarify, that you can't set an intention or sort of have a direction that you'd like to go. But the real work is trying not to manipulate that energy too much, trying to trust, trying to flow, be open to the pivots. Eclipses are wild. So who knows what comes in and what comes out. In 2023, when we were calling in a new house, we had to leave our old house. We were calling in a new place in Topanga. We were so set and so sure that this house that we live in now actually was the perfect house for us. And we felt so connected to the landlords. And then during this eclipse window, we were looking at the house. They let us know it was between us and another couple. They gave it to the other couple for other circumstances. And I just felt so clearly that it was still our house. So I was confused, but I knew it was eclipse season. I was like, hey, I'm giving it to God. If it's meant to be, we are open to it. If not, I'm ready for the next best things to come in. Sure enough, about a week later, in the middle of the eclipse window between two eclipses, They let us know that the other couple had something fall through and that they gave it to us. And so they were so sweet, so apologetic when they didn't give it to us in the first place, and really felt like it was a hard decision. So I just knew there was something happening. There's some sort of alchemy occurring. And we've been here ever since, and it's been so good to us. It's been such a beautiful landing place. Both of our dogs passed here. We're going to welcome in a child in this home. So it's incredible. And it's a good example of how to navigate eclipse seasons without gripping. And that's the most important thing. They bring material in and move it out just as quickly. Whatever is left on the other side of an eclipse season is meant to be there. But we cannot try to control and manipulate or contort the energy during these seasons. And that's why I say don't go heavy manifestation work during this time. Just be clear. Be clear, be precise about what you want, but be open. I know everyone has different manifestation techniques, but I talk all about this in the Eclipse Portal workshop, and we do a really powerful quantum healing journey, which is quite literally just an activation and alignment with your new timeline. And that's something, honestly, that can be repeated as often as you'd like over the next 6 months, really beyond that. But it is so crystal clear that is aligned with the energy of now. So if you want to click into that magical frequency, the link is in my show notes. And this eclipse is a big one. Like I said, it is connected to that 2017 timeline. That eclipse on August 21st, 2017 was at 29 degrees, so it was at the anaretic degree, connected to the North Node that was in Leo. This is a South Node eclipse, a total solar eclipse, which is new life, new beginnings, a reset. A solar eclipse is when the sun turns off, the light turns off. There's a reset in our consciousness. And there is a reset of the ego that wants to occur. I just did a video on this on Instagram talking about we're in a major ego death portal. And like I said, I've talked about this the past few episodes. If you haven't listened to those, I would go back because I talk a lot about what this lunar node transit will look like for us. This eclipse is the first reset point. It's highly illuminating. Both Mercury and Jupiter, the sun, the moon, and the South Node are going to be in Leo on that day. So there's magnification here. There's a lot of pressure to do something, to move, to create, to express, to share. Our work is to work with the South Node to keep us anchored and rooted and grounding. This is a refinement eclipse. A solar eclipse marks the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. This is significant because it's tied to the South Node, which is the past, which is where we've been. Again, I recommend going back 2 episodes to listen to that lunar node episode. I also did a whole Substack article on this specific axis of Leo and Aquarius that I dive really deep into what the lunar nodes are, how to work with them, how to work with this axis in particular. That's also linked in the show notes. But this is a reset point. During a solar eclipse, the light of the sun is obscured, which means our consciousness goes dark before it reorganizes. So it interrupts ordinary time. It redirects the trajectory of our lives in ways that we can't even understand quite yet. That's why I say ride the wave, trust the process. Eclipses are quite fated. I think we have a ton of free will in general. I think each and every planetary placement and alignment, we get to choose how to work with it. Eclipses are highly fated, though. They're much more karmic. They're much more tied to our destiny, our dharma, our karma, where we've been. And this one in particular is really about releasing old identities, releasing old ego structures that have kept us safe and small and contained, or even actually really served us over the last 9 years, 18 years, 36 years. And now there's a new, higher, more expanded level of consciousness that's wanting to emerge. So the work here is to notice, is this version of me big enough to hold what I'm becoming? What old versions of self, what belief systems, what identities, what ways of expressing are outdated, are ready to be shed so that I can move into the vastness of this next chapter, this next version of self. Leo rules identity and creativity, expression, visibility, leadership, courage. It rules the heart. Are you moving from the heart? Are you moving from the wound? Is this wound of not being seen ruling how you move through life at the moment? This is a refinement period. So this is not just be bold, be yourself, be big, be heard, like a lot of what we see on the internet at the moment. This is much more about not being louder, but being more authentic. That can be incredibly quiet. That can be even gentle. It doesn't matter how loud you are. It doesn't even matter what you're saying as long as you are authentic. And I'm telling you, in this new timeline, it's not going to be the people that yell the loudest or push the hardest. It's going to be those who are most authentic. You don't have to say a lot if it's coming from the highest frequency of authenticity and intention, if it's coming from the heart. And this is why we're quite literally weaving this new timeline. Jupiter in Leo activated Barbault's Basket last month. This basket is weaving over the next few years. So we're participating in this. How are we participating? That's what this eclipse is asking for us to notice and observe. We're clicking into a new timeline. It's bringing us there, but we have to participate by being honest about what we're bringing forward, where we're expressing from, being open to an ego death. I said in the eclipse workshop that as long as we are in touch with our ego, as long as we are in right relationship with it, we don't have to go through these massive ego deaths every few years. We can have mini ones all the time. And that's the work. I noticed even, I was doing something in the kitchen the other day and I noticed this thought that came through and it had a lot of charge and a lot of passion and a lot of anger, honestly. And then I just noticed this gentle nudge off to the side that said, do you actually still believe that? And so what I got to do is I got to work with the anger. I got to work with it and move it through my body. But then I also got to download a new pathway of consciousness to say, oh, maybe there's a pathway that's more expanded outside of this belief. And it was a belief that had really honestly shaped my identity over the last 9 years. But I was ready to move beyond it. And it doesn't mean I'm totally dissolving that identity overnight or in one exact moment, but there's a new pathway now. So I get to evolve outside of that. I get to push up against that wall of comfort and familiarity, and I get to grow into a more expanded version of self through that pathway. And that's how we grow. We carve these little pathways over time, these new neural pathways that say, what if there's a new way to see this? What if there's a new perspective? What if there's a new belief that wants to emerge? What if what you've believed over the last 9 years is no longer big enough for what you're becoming? And if you are becoming from an authentic space within you, you are going to get and create exactly what's right for you in this future timeline. It's not about being the loudest. It's not about being the most powerful. It's not about being the biggest, the most seen. It's about your authentic truth, because I'm telling you, we are becoming more psychic and we are going to be able to notice and sense and smell intention and authenticity as the years continue. And that will be power and success moving forward. That's how these ego power structures are dissolving, because they won't hold, quite frankly, power over us anymore, because we can smell and sniff out intention better than we could before. We won't fall for these gurus and leaders who are just inflated. We'll be able to smell and sense authenticity. And this starts within. So we have to cultivate our own authentic channel more and more, our own authentic center more and more, so that we can sense it in other people. And that is the work of this total solar eclipse in Leo. And it's activating this whole new 6-month timeline. Really, we're going to be having eclipses along this axis well into the end of 2028, actually early 2029. During that 2017 period, we needed bigness. We needed individuation. We needed courage. We needed to occupy a new center of gravity. So many people I know left lives, left relationships, left power dynamics. Now we're in a refinement period, and it's saying, do you still need that much power, that much force, that much intensity? Or is there a refinement that could come online? Can you grow beyond that more survival space? Can you grow beyond that wound and actually enter a space of service that's beyond what you could have imagined before? This season of the South Node in Leo from July 26, 2026 to March 2028 is about befriending a new ego structure. We need an ego structure. We need individuality. We need preferences, desires, creativity, agency. The ego keeps us alive. It keeps us functioning. We will always have an ego. The work is to be in right relationship with it. This identity may have become too small for the consciousness that's inhabiting it. What you're ready to move into might need a wider, more expansive structure. So this eclipse is asking, who have you needed to be in order to navigate the last 9 years? Who have other people known you as? Who are you afraid you won't be anymore? As we build this new architecture of consciousness, we have to decide who we are going to be to inhabit it, to participate in it, to create it alongside the others. And with the North Node in Aquarius, it's saying there's a higher, bigger, wider picture here. Who are you choosing to be within this? So, thank you for being here. Thank you for, as always, participating, being open. Take what resonates, release what does not. If you're interested in working with the energy of this eclipse, drop into my Eclipse Portal workshop. It will be available really over the next 6 months. You can repeat the journey as often as you'd like. I go really deep into these specifics about this eclipse. This one on the 12th, and then also the one on the 27th, and how we can work with this in-between space. And the card that I pulled today from the Untamed Elemental deck is the Storm card. And it's all about transition. It says she is the cycle of madness necessary to reclaim serenity. Before storm's arrival, the gathering charge expands, creating deep unrest. She weaves her rumble of thunder with flashes of lightning, commanding immediate attention. Her climactic performance echoes through the theater of the gods, opening new dimensions. Finally, the skies rain down the tears that precede tomorrow's renewal. Storm indicates transition. Really. In the midst of the tempest, you might wonder how much damage will be done, or even whether you'll survive. Remember, the polarity of destruction is renewal. One does not exist without the other. How you endure the storm will influence your ability to regenerate once it's over. Now is the time to take exquisite care of yourself. Soon the sun will be out, the air will be fresh and full of vitality, and a new world will be revealed. When it's balanced, you have confidence in your resiliency. When it's imbalanced, there's trepidation in the midst of change. To bring into balance, stabilize your body's electrical environment by embracing the theory of grounding. Well, that couldn't be more accurate. We just talked about how an eclipse is a karmic storm. So this is spot on. It's about riding the wave, taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, noticing what's unfolding, but not getting too attached to the storm itself, to what's swirling around you, but trusting that there is another side. And what's really meant for you will land on that other side without you gripping to it. Thank you for being here. Thank you, as always, for sharing this with others, with loved ones, friends, family, for sharing on social media. It means the world. It really helps this podcast continue to grow, helps me to continue to produce it and to make it. Join my Substack. It's $8 a month. It's a way to help support the production of this podcast too. Thank you. Happy eclipse season, and I'll see you next week.